Well,
Stream
good
is
afternoon,
live.
hello, and welcome everybody that's watching. Thanks for piling on. Just do us a favor, guys, like and share this video. We're going to be talking about something that is very relevant, especially the situation that Tommy's in at the minute, and it's about, is the UK becoming the police state, or is the UK already a police state? And obviously, any sensible comments in the comments will be looked at. Any silly comments will just be ignored or deleted. So that's kind of the way it works. But you're welcome to say what you want. We believe in free speech. Momus, is the UK a police state?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a reason
Okay,
why I've been
right,
doing
guys. That's the
episodes.
end of the
Sorry.
stream. It's a police state. We've decided.
There's a reason why I've been doing the
Yeah.
episodes, thoughts from Soviet Britain.
Yep.
Yeah, it is. It has been coming for a very long time. Now it's just even more concrete.
I mean, do you think things have got worse since Chairman Starmer, Prime Minister Starmer took power in his
Yeah,
coup?
most definitely. Because the thing is, I feel like I think this is true. Like most of the majority of the public institutions, including police and everyone, they're very pro labor, right? So they're it doesn't matter if the normal people who are working over there are pro labor or not. But I think so. Their management, their upper class, they're all pro labor, anyways. So this was coming for them for a very long time. This is why they were frustrating Tories as well. It didn't help Tories that they had shitloads of liberals within there anyways who agreed with Labour on many points. So and the Tories were trying to appease the civil service and all the public institutions because of this reason, because they were very pro Labour and they wouldn't do anything for them, right? But I don't know if people remember as well, Starmer was going around and meeting all of these people way before the elections as well, all the police commissioners and whatnot. This was the reason, right? Since he has come in, obviously whatever that plan was is in force now. And what they're hoping for is like they either wreck the country as much as possible before the next elections, or that they somehow cement even a next term for themselves. I don't know how that would be possible. That could be possible, though. That could be possible.
Well, I mean, it's very possible if the right don't get their act together.
Yeah.
And look, everyone knows, I'm very vocal about it. I'm a member of UKIP. I'm on the NEC. But if the right doesn't come together in a very,
Mm.
very well organized way, there's no one party,
Yeah.
even if Reform do really well, there's no one party that can actually win the
No.
next election. And especially if, I mean, I actually hope it does happen, because I believe variety is a good thing. But if Andrew Bridgen say, Ben Habib, Rupert Lowe start another party, it's going to split the votes even more. And
Mm.
obviously, but if we keep talking about this, if they were able to form a grand coalition, that would go some way to mitigate that. But we don't have a Trump figure who is
Yeah.
a one lead. Well, we do in Tommy, I think, but we don't have a Trump figure who's ready to do that
Mm.
out of the box right now and basically lead the country in the right direction. And that's what we need. I think we need one person, and it's not
Mm.
Nigel, because Nigel has showed that he doesn't have those
No.
leadership qualities. He's a great orator, but he doesn't have those qualities. And I think the other thing is that I'm very aware of at the moment, there's a lot of infiltration. There's a lot of bad actors trying to destroy our movement. And that's part of the police state as well.
Oh
Because
yeah.
I remember years ago, watching a documentary about the miners' strike, and Arthur Scargill was interviewed, and I think it was a BBC documentary in the 90s,
Mm.
and Scargill was interviewed, and whoever was doing the documentary said to Scargill, says, "Were you aware that everybody on the ruling council of the National Union of Mine Workers, apart from you, was working for MI5?" So the whole lot. Now this was obviously in 1984 in the miners' strike, but the problem that we've got, Mo, is that basically now we're in a situation where we're seen as the subversives,
Mm.
and we're seen as the ones that are trying to undermine the state. When under Thatcher's Britain, obviously it was the far left and the loony left and the IRA and
Mm.
the various Irish terrorist organizations, and the people like Militant Tendency, who
Mm.
were coming under the watchful eye of the security services. But now when you look at the way groups like Hope Not Hate, various different bodies within the UK establishment are actually looking at people with very moderate right-wing views and looking at them as a threat to national security, while completely walking around blind about the nutcases that have been walking around London since October the 7th, 2023, demanding, from the river to the sea, which we all know what that's a euphemism for. And so it's not even the fact that it's a police state. It is a two-tier police state, because basically what they're doing is they're looking at us, and no doubt there's a picture of me, you, Tommy, goodness knows who else, in some dingy, badly lit room in wherever the police meet now. It's not New Scotland Yard anymore, is it? It's somewhere south of the river. But and we are the ones that are under the watchful eye of the security services and the and whatever units deal with politically unsavory people. And I think we know that. I mean, I was thinking about Callum. I think it's Callum. Was it Callum Webster? I can't remember. Callum that used to do stuff with Sargon, with Carl Benjamin, and he came back to the UK. I think, came back from the States, and he was pulled in by the anti-terror branch, and quizzed, and his I think his phone was taken. I think his computer was taken, his laptop. And he didn't make a big fuss about it, because obviously
he wasn't quizzed when he came back from Afghanistan.
No,
he was when he came back from America.
When he came back from the United States, because he'd been talking to right wingers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're what we're dealing with at the moment. So it's chilling and it's sinister. You think about Lucy Connolly. We think about the train driver, I forget his name, that was arrested at the event in Downing Street back end of last year. And you also think about the way people have been spreading instability within the movement. And it seems, from all sorts of different angles, undermining people, try to stop people doing what they do. And you've got to be asking questions about what the heck is going on and what's happened to freedom in our country. What do you think about the internet harms legislation and the chilling effect that that's had since it's come into effect?
Well, it's just another thing, isn't it? Like they just want to control. They just want to control people. Like not just control people, they want to control what they think and how they think, so that they're easy to model, right? And if we even see like during the Thatcher time, right? So the far left who were seen as, or the left and the far left who wanted some change, and they had good grounds to ask for change as well at that time, because everything was erupting and stuff, but they didn't win, right? Labor won in the end, right? So even when SDP around that time, which I am a member of, they wanted change at that time, they weren't let to win, right? In the end, Labour won, and Labour continued, uh, the legacy of whatever was going on before, because when these things happen, like those all those groups are so fragmented, and we can see that on this end now as well, on the right, that they are always unable to come together, right? So I mean, a lot of people hope that there will be coalition, a lot of people hope that somehow people will come together, but I doubt it, because this always happens. Everyone has their own agenda, and right now as well, on the right, people have very differing agendas. They might seem like they have similar agendas of wanting some change, but what that change is and how to get that change, what the extent of that change is, everyone has different thoughts about it. Everyone has different thoughts about who to include, who not to include. So I think so the reason why they are putting these laws in, they're very clever about it, because they can keep us distracted about that, A, and B, they can keep us, they can make us more extreme, right? So how they're putting in obvious two-tier laws now, or like the guidance that actually generic for against, and it was reversed about, like, white guys being more targeted by the police, like in clear cut, and like any ethnic minority would get, like, a reduced or relaxed sentence and stuff. They're doing it so that they can provoke people to be more extreme on the right, and then they have legitimacy of creating a center right, perhaps, which reform is probably doing. Like, this is what it seems like what reform under Farage is doing, is coming as a containment of that sort, how labor came as a containment for the far left at that time, and then they can win, but we won't get any change. We won't get any
Yeah.
change if Reform and even more likely what's going to happen, Reform and Tories are going to form a coalition of some sort, right? We won't get any change. That just makes sure the establishment wins and is, same as usual. And people like Tommy Robinson and stuff, they will finally get rid of him in one way or another, right? They will find a solution for that, because both then of the establishment, right and left, will be completely in agreement. Or we done with this now. We've used it for our benefit, for right or for wrong reasons, and now we can do away with it, right? And along with that will go all the actual needs and wants and desires of the working class. Their voices will always get silenced, right? Because I mean, Reform, Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, all of and Republican, they're all big names, but they're all individual names. Even if they form a coalition, they have a way of destroying them. So unless something really drastic happens, and has to be something completely new as well, and something that is beyond the paradigm of left and right, I don't think so we're gonna get anywhere. And this is depressing to see, because I can see, like, it's just a repeat, it's just a cycle. They're doing it. First they do it on the right, then they do it on the left, and they'll do it on the right. Like, it's just a way of keeping people divided. So in the end, they don't believe in those laws themselves. I don't think so they believe in those laws themselves. When Keir Starmer goes around and says, like, oh yeah, he believes in free speech to Trump, I think so he really believes that he believes in free speech. But in his view, A, he's using this tactic to silence people, and B, like, he thinks free speech is only obviously what he thinks is valid speech, right? So I don't think so they fully believe in these laws and stuff. They're provoking them for a reason.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's right, and I think, like you say, we need a party. And I mean, I must admit, I am, obviously, I am biased, but I do really think that that UKIP are doing a good job at the minute. I think I must admit, I think I'm pretty impressed with the way UKIP are doing stuff. What do you think? What are your thoughts on UKIP?
Well, well, obviously, I don't think that. Otherwise, I would have joined UKIP, right? Because there's the reason why I've joined
Yeah, of course.
SDP,
Yeah,
right? Um, but
yeah,
I think so
yeah.
they're not doing a bad job. They need to convert.
Mm,
The thing is, all these parties, even SDP and UKIP, both, they need some wins, right? Some obvious wins, so that people can actually
yeah,
get behind that, right? So if we don't win any seats in the local council, if we don't increase our, like, if SDP, because we already have three councillors, if we don't have
yeah,
more in other places, then it doesn't seem like we're going anywhere, right? And the
yeah,
same is with UKIP. If UKIP end up not winning any seats, then people will, but then people will start, like, going like, well, what's the point? It's not going to happen.
yeah,
And so
yeah,
we need some sort of win to build a momentum. And it's like, if UKIP on the right wins certain seats, if SDP on the right left wins more seats, then we can build on that, right? Because we cannot have one party that will win the whole country. Because, like
yeah,
you said, we don't have a Trump figure. And even if Tommy Robinson was able to do it, like, able to come out and stuff, it will take time for his image to be actually, you know put out there, and all the lies to disappear around him, right? But
yeah,
that will
yeah.
take time. That will take time.
I think with Tommy, I think again, and again, you can't speak for Tommy, because, like, if you try and
Mm.
tell Tommy what to do, you know what he's like. He
Yeah.
does exactly the opposite of everything.
Yeah.
You know, you say don't put your hand in the fire, he's going to put his hand in the fire.
Yeah.
And the laugh of it is, when he does that, he still comes out, smelling of roses. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's the reality of the situation. But I think Tommy, what he has is the support of the vast majority of the working class
Mm.
indigenous British people, and not just, I mean, and others. I mean, not just white English, but I think
Mm.
he's got the support of a lot of people in the black community,
Yeah.
a lot of Asians, Sikhs.
Mm.
So he's got massive support among the
Yeah.
British working class. And I think what Tommy could do, I don't think he would necessarily need to stand for Parliament. What he could do is get behind a
Yeah, yeah,
movement or a
yeah.
party who are going to appeal to that demographic and say,
Yeah.
right, guys. But what he would have to do, because we've been done over so many times. When Farage was involved in UKIP in 2018, they totally shafted us when we got Gerard and Tommy involved and the veterans and the football lads. He just couldn't have it. It was too, he's too sniffy. He couldn't have working class oiks anywhere near him. You know what I mean? So he basically sunk the thing. And so we were burned by UKIP in 2018, and then Reform did exactly the same thing in this election. There was back channels to Tommy and all the big social media influencers to say, get behind Reform. Everybody said get behind Reform. Reform got 4 million votes, and then it was, no, we don't want anything to do with you lot. And which, so I that's, and I've, I went against my conscience then, and I said, okay, guys, yes, get behind Reform, back Reform. And I wish, to be honest with you, I wish I hadn't said that, because if Reform had performed a little bit worse, we wouldn't have this hero worship of Farage and co. But also, we wouldn't have a massive Labour majority that's able to put all these draconian, laws in place and this political policing. And obviously, the surveillance state is getting worse and worse as time goes on. I mean, they're pretty much plugged into everybody's phones if they want to be. That they seem to be able to, pull people off the street for tiny little tweets. I mean, wasn't the one a guy a couple of weeks ago that had put something in a WhatsApp group and the police knocked at his door?
Yeah,
like in a WhatsApp group.
School. Yeah, I think so. It was a school sort of a thing. I mean, the problem is, like, I think so. There's a lot of options that people have, but nothing. I don't. The problem is Farage, right? The problem is Farage, because anyone who right now will try to challenge him, he always plays dirty. He's gonna play dirty, and he's gonna pull them in the mud, and he won't be involved himself. He'll send his proxies to do that, as he usually does. He'll pull them in the mud, even if they come out like winning. They'll still be covered in mud. This is what's happened to Rupert Lowe. Now the media is still like treating him as if he's covered in mud, even though he's not. The public might be with him, but it is relentless, right? So if you have to keep on fighting, like the same is with Tommy as well. Even though he has the support of the working class and stuff, but in the media, right, everyone will have to fight again and again and again, like just to explain, like, no, what you're saying is lies, and they won't listen, right? And then people form this idea in their head, what, like, no, I think so, he can't win it, so they just won't vote for him, or they just won't turn out. What happened in 2024 as well. Like, even Farage could not inspire people to come out and vote. The voter turnout was the lowest. And if he's saying, like, oh, he did something great, like, well, why didn't you inspire people? They should have been like 90-80% turnout, but there wasn't. So which means that most of the people are still disconnected from the social media, are still unaware of probably that's why he was gathering all the younger population, because then the TikTok generation in 2029 might be old enough to vote for him. But most of the other people, they're still connected in that paradigm of Tories and Labour, and we still can't break that. So that has to be on the ground, and that has to be by a singular figure who can form, like, on both sides, get people on the both sides. And I just don't know who that figure would be politically, right?
I think it is difficult, and I think Tommy has a big part to play in galvanizing the working class. I think Nick's doing his thing.
I just don't know, like, a singular political leader. It doesn't have to be from politics, but I don't know who we have in England, who we have in Britain, who can do that.
We've got to hope that God raises somebody up, that somebody, there's a Churchill type figure. There's probably someone waiting there in the wings who fits that bill, but has just, he's maybe involved in business or whatever, and he just hasn't come to the, he hasn't put his neck in that very very tight noose that it will be if whoever he is, because he's going to come under massive pressure. And it needs to be someone who's extremely resilient and extremely
Hmm.
strong, and probably
Yeah.
financially pretty well off as well. So they can't,
Yeah.
they can't go after his
Yeah.
money and go after his
That's what
fines.
how Trump won. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do you think about the? I mean, we spoke a bit about at the end of the stream last time. I want to come back to some of the political policing stuff towards the
Hmm.
end, because I want to talk to you. I know you've kind of, and again, before we do this, I want to give a massive warning. We're not giving legal advice. We're not lawyers, but there
Yeah.
are a few kind of, what would we say? Not tips, but just maybe protocols to follow if you ever are arrested for. In fact, let's do that now. Well, let's go through those ideas that have come from a legal mind, but we're not giving legal advice. These are just
Hmm.
things that you might do if you got arrested for a tweet, or one of these false
Hmm.
terrorism detentions when people come back into the country from the States or whatever. What was the advice that you got for that
Well,
moment?
I can't obviously I can't disclose all the advice because it's like
No,
confidential.
yeah,
And at the same time, it would appear as if I'm
just some
giving
general
like legal
principles.
advice
Yeah,
through
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
proxy of another.
yeah,
But I just like this. This is the general advice that is always given, anyways. First of all,
yeah,
like for people to not say anything, not admit to anything, not admit you're guilty or whatever. Just don't talk to them. Make them
yeah,
talk to you, make them tell you what specification within the law that they are using, and
yeah,
ask for legal advice, and like demand legal advice, and say like, no, you need a representative. They can't just like do these things to you. But yeah,
I
that
think
would like,
I think
because
under
a lot of people get scared, and they just say,
mm,
or they give their phone away. Don't give your phone. Don't like
yeah.
do any of those
Well,
things.
I
And it
think
doesn't
under
have to do with
under the terrorism legislation, you have to give your phone, and
yeah, but
unless you've got very,
even
that
I
was
think so.
Tommy had.
I think so. Even under the terrorism legislation and stuff, y- you're supposed to do it, but there's no rush for it. You don't have to do it straight away. You can
Yeah, yeah,
ask for
yeah,
your
yeah.
legal advice to come in, and
Wait till you
yeah,
get your legal
exactly.
advice. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I think
yeah,
that's right. I think it's always about you've got a right to. You've always got a right
hmm,
to legal representation. I
yeah,
think that's absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, I just think I think it's right, and I think, like you say, don't panic if you do.
yeah.
If people do get arrested, but it's
Slow it
ridiculous. I
down.
mean,
Take your
the
time.
fact that, yeah, exactly, the fact that we're talking about law-abiding citizens who hold our political opinions, um, or have prayed outside an abortion clinic,
Hmm,
or have put a tweet up that somebody was like, or have sang a song about the false Arabian deity. Any of
hmm,
those things can now get you arrested, and in some cases land you in prison as well. I mean, some of the stuff
yeah,
that people went to prison for last September are absolutely
yeah.
just,
I won't even say
just horrendous.
like Tina is saying, deny everything. Don't say anything. No comment.
Yeah, yeah,
Don't you admit or deny. Just say no comment. You know, and don't plead
yeah.
guilty. That's for sure. Don't plead guilty, because
That's
they tell you like, or
yeah.
they give you a deal or whatever. But once you
Well,
plead guilty, you're
that's
admitting
what they
guilt.
did, wasn't it?
So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's what they did. I mean, if you're not guilty, don't plead guilty. If you're guilty, that's
Yeah.
different. But if you're guilty
Hmm.
of a criminal offence, it's different. But if you haven't done anything, or it's one of these very grey areas of hate speech,
Yeah.
you've got to go not guilty all the way.
Yeah.
And then of course it gets dragged into the Crown Court, and the reality is, as that happens, and cases unfold. I mean, when you look at some of the cases, if the people had gone not guilty, they would not have been sent to prison.
Hmm.
When you look at what they were charged with and what they were convicted of,
Hmm.
yeah, they were just put under massive pressure.
Yeah.
And this is the other one, that woman that was arrested and went through court and was found guilty, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And I think I'm
Yeah.
right in saying she's going to have to sell a house now.
Yeah.
This woman that, and Sammy Woodhouse put something out, I think this morning on Twitter, saying that there were far more people in prison for what happened in Rotherham at the hotel where there was the riot than have been arrested and charged and sent to prison for the Rotherham grooming gangs that went on for 20 years. I mean, it's It's
It's
absolutely
provocation, like
incredible. And again,
they're provoking for a reason, right? They're provoking on purpose, especially like
mm,
when it comes to Christianity, right? When it comes to Christians, they're provoking for a reason because they want to show,
yeah,
and they want a civil war. They want this fight because they know as the state they will win, right? Well, obviously that's what they think. They
well,
might not win.
yeah, I mean,
Most probably they won't win, right? But as a
yeah,
state, they think we will win, we will have this, and then we'll have a proper legitimate reason to pull these people in, and all these Christians that
I,
are making noises as well, get them in as well.
I think the problem that they've got is they don't understand Christianity. They don't understand Islam, and they don't
No,
understand Christianity. Is it
they don't
at the heart
understand
of Islam?
humanity.
No, they don't. No, they don't understand humanity. They don't
Hmm.
understand anything. I think at the heart of Christianity is a message of peace and self-sacrifice by God by God in human flesh for His
Hmm.
people. That's the core of Christianity. Whereas at the core of Islam is sacrifice everything for Muhammad, Allah, and the Quran,
Yeah,
including
submission.
yourself and
It means
anybody else that's around
submission.
you. Yeah, it's submission. Whereas Christianity is salvation. So it's like, and
Hmm.
this is what they don't understand. I think what the state are terrified of some sort of Christian militia that's going to start doing all sorts of dreadful things. A genuine Christianity does not allow you to do that. You
Hmm.
can't do that as I mean, it's happened. We know right the way through history. But if someone really takes the Bible seriously, which very few people, including me, well, I do take it seriously. I just don't live it very well. But the reality is, if people take that seriously and live by it, they won't do the things that 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 cause the problems that cause civil wars and conflicts and all the rest of it, because you're taught to forgive everyone. I mean, that
Hmm.
the core of Christian one of the core tenets of Christianity, you've got to forgive people that do you harm, which is
Yeah.
incredibly difficult, but at the same
Yeah.
time it's also it also makes a big difference, and when people live that, it has a massive effect on
Yeah.
society. So to me, there was a piece came out last week, I think it was. There was a survey about church attendance in the UK, and among young people, it's going through the roof. And
Hmm.
they're going to Pentecostal churches, they're going to Catholic churches. There's
Hmm.
people from all different racial backgrounds, and it's among young people from I think 18 to 35, the figures are completely off the chart. They've gone from
Hmm.
something like 6% up to 40 odd percent or something ridiculous.
Hmm.
It was the figures were were
Hmm.
I haven't got them in front of me, but they were enough to sort of make you sit and go, my goodness,
Yeah.
there's something happening here. So to me, that feeds into the political realm as well, because if people start thinking in a Christianized way, it's going to mean that they will change the way they do things. When
Yeah,
you
and this
live
is
in a
what they're
Christian,
getting wrong. This is what they're getting wrong as well, because they think that people who are turning towards Christianity, or people who are Christians, they are
yeah,
actually far right, right? But actually, what they don't understand, they are actually a buffer for far right. They're actually stopping far right from
yeah,
becoming far right. It's just because some people on the actual far right use Christ as king for their own devious means, when they actually
yeah,
don't believe in it, but they're just doing it to hate on Jews and stuff, like, just to have that cover. They're
yeah.
not
I agree.
representative of Christianity, right?
I
And
agree.
this is why I've been advocating for people going back to Christianity in the West, is because it
Yeah,
stops people from doing the things that Hitler did, right? Or doing the things what people before Hitler have done as well. It stops people
yeah.
from doing that, right? And before anyone even says like Hitler was Christian, just look it up. He wasn't. Okay, he actually
He's
was
a pagan.
so angry. He was so dismissed that the Aryans did not accept Islam, because he would
Yeah,
have preferred Germans to have Islam, because it was a warrior sort of religion and stuff,
yeah,
and he thought Christianity was weak. He thought the peace of
yeah,
Christianity was weak, but the peace of Christianity is the strongest thing about it.
yeah, yeah.
So they get this
Exactly.
massively wrong.
And look, let's get it right. I mean, the reality is that before before the Reformation, during the Reformation, even up until the Troubles in Northern Ireland, Christians did do some pretty bad things, in the name of Christianity. But the point is, and this is what people miss, that you cannot justify a Christian can't justify his bad behavior by the
Hmm.
scripture. You can't do
Oh yeah,
something
yeah,
really bad
yeah. Yeah.
You can't murder someone and say, "Oh,
Hmm.
well, I did it in God's name." You just can't do
Yeah.
that, because if you look
Yeah.
right the way, if you take the scripture seriously, you look at that, you can't do it. And if you do it, you need to repent pretty quick,
Hmm.
and and sort yourself out. So you can't live like that, and you know say that that's having an effect on your life. Whereas if
Hmm.
people take it seriously, then it should change them. And they won't be perfect, and they'll make lots of mistakes like we all do, but they you know they should be changed. And if there is a Christian revival taking place, which some people are saying I don't think there is yet, but
Hmm.
if people are turning back to God, and I've been doing my best to turn back to God. It's not it's a difficult process, but if we're doing that, then it's not going to have a negative effect. And that's why
Hmm.
I think the state has got it so wrong. If they're going after Christians, they're going after the
Yeah.
wrong religious group.
Hmm.
Whereas,
But I think so as well. Like with the revival bit as well, because people want the destination before they have gone through the process, right? And they think like, oh, if the revival won't happen unless everyone just becomes Christian right now. Right now, everyone like no, you have to
yeah,
go through the process. The process is the winner,
yeah,
right? Once you start the process,
yeah,
it doesn't mean that you are like Jesus. It means that you are, in that in that pathway, and that is the
yeah,
path of good, and that's where we want to go. And I think so someone was asking like
mm,
how can we make Christianity cool as well. I think so this is the thing, like we have to we don't have to fight against something, right? So the point is not to fight
yeah,
against Islam, or to against, even against the communist government and stuff. The
yeah,
power of Christianity is to fight for something, right? To fight for peace, to fight for the love of Christ. And once you start doing that, then you give people a positive message, and more people will come towards it, because it uplifts them. So there's a lot of channels actually coming up as well, most of them American influenced,
yeah,
Americans have invested in them, like the Faith Network and stuff. Like there's a lot of those things coming up, even the Daily Wire itself and stuff, the things that they produce. So I think so it's sort of like surround your kids, and your family with those sort of media. Pull them away from, like, especially the kids. Don't give them a bad diet, right? Don't give them a
yeah,
bad information diet to begin with, so that
yep,
so that naturally they come towards it. Start going to church yourself, encourage people to go to church and stuff. And doesn't mean that you have to like constantly bash on about it and stuff, and make like people, annoy people, like, some of the street preachers and stuff too. I think so they just make people more like, they avert people towards it. But also, like, we need to all start coming together, arranging to celebrate all of the religious events that happen in England, that are throughout
yeah,
the calendar, right? All of the religious events. So we need to start arranging for it in our local communities and stuff. Family days, right? It doesn't have to be overtly like, that, about Christianity and stuff, but linking Christianity with family life, and family spaces where people can have fun with their kids and not have to break the bank to have that fun, right? To create that space. That is, I think so, that is a practical way of pulling people more than the church can ever pull. And because it puts the seeds in, right? It puts the seeds in, and then people are curious. Okay, maybe I'll think about that, maybe I'll, do the next steps and stuff, and that's how it will grow. From as far as I know, like,
yep,
a lot of young people are turning towards church. The numbers are
yeah,
going up, and especially young men. And this encourages me, because the young men are not going towards really far right, like weirdos and stuff. They're actually turning towards
yep,
Christianity, which is good. And I see that even within SDP, a lot of the SDP core is Christian core. A
yep,
lot of Catholics are in there and stuff, and their social practice is actually based upon, like, the SDP's actually social practice is actually based upon Catholic social practice. So their
yep.
core is that, their core is traditional sort of, doing good for the community and stuff like that. So I think so we need more of that. We don't need to make it cool, we just need to make it a fact again.
Well, I think that's right. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's about getting back to the basics. I think one of the problems the Church of England's got is because they jettisoned everything to to keep up with the latest woke trends, and they've caused themselves massive problems. But I think if it's genuinely, if people are, I think what's happening, I think there's an intellectual side to this, and there's a spiritual side to this. So I think on the intellectual side, people are looking at the world and realizing that the new atheists didn't have any answers. They just had hopelessness and despair, and a complete moral collapse, and that really Christianity is a very sensible and practical way to organize society, and to live, and to do things properly. So that's the intellectual side of it. That won't work if you don't have the spiritual side of it.
Hmm.
So you've got to have the faith. The
Yeah.
Bible's very clear. The just shall
Yeah.
live by faith. You've got to have the faith as
Hmm.
well as having the
Yeah.
intellectual side of things. But I
Yeah.
think those if those two things come together, and
Yeah.
again, I mean, obviously, I mean, do you mind me? I'm going to ask you a very personal question, Momus.
Hmm.
Where are you
Yeah.
on that sort of journey now? And I'm not. It's just I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Yeah.
I've not. I maybe should have
Yeah.
asked you offline, but
Yeah.
if you don't mind telling me online, by all means do. If you're not comfortable, we can chat
No,
about it
no,
offline.
it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's like so obviously, I don't know if like most of your listeners know or not. Like I'm an ex-Muslim, so and I left Islam like 18 years ago, and because I was spiritual always, connected with that sort of a thing. And once like God betrays you in your head in that way, when you actually find the truth about Islam, and it leaves a bad sort of mark in you, like sort of
Yeah.
black mark in your heart, like so I did lose my way a lot. I became like a very militant atheist in that sense, but
Mm.
then I sort of
Yeah.
found my way back because I call myself like a seeker. There's a concept,
Yes.
it comes from India, this concept of it, and it's someone who is seeking, right? So for them it's
Yeah.
sort of like a deist, right? So I believe in God anyways. The pathway to it is my own then, right? So I'm trying to seek my way back to him, sort of a thing, you know.
Yeah.
When it comes to Christianity, I would call myself a Christian deist, where I believe in the wisdom of Christianity. Um, but I'm not there yet to believe in the truth of Christianity, right? But I know like I can be there, but it's a journey, and I don't want to push myself towards it. I don't want to fake it as well. I don't want to say, oh, I am that. um but I'm just on that journey. And while like because I'm married into Catholic family, a Polish Catholic family
Mm.
as well, it sort of helps to bring that in. And I'm pretty close to my Polish in-laws. So it helps that, and it helps surrounding that. I'm a curious guy. I love history, I love mythology and stuff like that, and I love
Yeah.
reading about religions, all religions and stuff. So I'm pretty much connected on that. I definitely don't think that there's no other element to us apart from our material selves.
Yeah.
I definitely think there's something there. I am getting closer and closer to the fact that Christianity is true. um I have my moments, so I do go to church every now and then and stuff like that. You know but yeah, I would say like my journey is there, but my like I don't want to be, yeah, I don't want to be pushed, because I don't think so is going to be helpful. And
No,
probably
it
if
doesn't
I'm
work. No, it
yeah,
doesn't work.
yeah, and then
You know,
probably
you've
if
got to
I'm
you've got
if
to
I'm
come to
on
your
that
own.
journey, yeah, and I think so if I'm on that journey, then I can take other people on that journey with me as well, in that sense, right? And it would help them to understand like how to get to it. And I might not be, I might never believe in the truth of Christ or whatever, but at least I know I have oriented myself differently. I've oriented myself away from material things, away from it. Now, that was always me, anyways, right? And I just had a blip of a moment when I left Islam, when I was like really angry and
Yeah.
stuff. But then I went back to it, back to myself, and I was always connected outside of like, I hated the material world, like, not
Mm.
hated it in that
Yeah.
sense that I don't like anything about it, but it's like my preference, my focus was on it wasn't my priority, right? And so that's helped me a lot. And I think so there's a lot of things like when people read in Christianity, there's a lot of um and people need to read it, right? Like what I don't like is when people say, oh, they're just Christians, or they go to church or something, but they never inspect their faith. They never think about it. They never read about it and in detail and stuff. I think so people miss out the actual wisdom of it, because it's telling you something that that even goes beyond whether God is real or not. It even goes beyond that, because it's that true. Still now, like after 2000 years, it still comes true, that pieces of wisdom. So I think so people really miss that point, and I wish like people go back to that, inspect that what you believe in is important, to self reflect on that all the time.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think the other thing is, this lady's put about the apostate prophet on there. I don't know if you've ever followed him, Mo,
Mhm.
the apostate
We follow each
the
other, yeah.
apostate prophet. Again, totally very similar story to
Yeah,
yours. I think he's become an orthodox, an orthodox Christian. Look, I mean, again, nobody can push you into being a Christian, and
I'll show
that's
you
the worst thing
something.
you can do. It's yeah.
Now that you mention it, I'll show you something. um this book, right?
Oh, very good. Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Orthodox. I think so. There's a reason why a lot of ex-Muslims might be going towards Orthodox Christianity, if they are
Yeah.
from around that world, is because this is closer to what Islam corrupted, right? Uh,
Yes.
a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
liturgy and stuff like that of what Islam has based
Mm.
itself on. It's
Yeah.
it is closer, and plus it is the oldest like, sort of church base, of
Yeah.
Christianity. So, and it's of that
But I mean,
region.
yeah. I mean, again, obviously, I don't know much about Orthodox Christianity, but from what I can gather, it's similar to what you're saying in a way. It's like it's basically a process of believing in evangelical or Protestant Christianity. It's a lot of it's about sort of having this conversion experience and becoming a Christian, and then everything supposedly changes suddenly, because in the real world life isn't like that, because you've still
Hmm.
got loads of things that are you still you still commit loads of sins, you still do loads of stuff wrong, and it's how do you deal with that if you're now this new creature.
Hmm.
So I think in orthodoxy it seems to be that there's a sort of, it's about a sanctification process and a
Hmm.
process of believing, and as you believe more and as you bury yourself more, and I'm not an orthodox, but I'm just saying
Hmm.
this is kind of my understanding of it. So if anybody's in the comments it is orthodox, and I'm getting it totally wrong, let us know, and let us know in the comments. But it seems like there's a more sort of gradual building of your faith until the eventual position of orthodoxy is this idea of complete unity with God through
Hmm.
Christ. And
Yeah.
that's that anyway, that's sort of
I mean,
going deep into
I would,
just
yeah,
my not very good understanding of orthodoxy.
I would say this though, like right now, the time that we are in, it doesn't matter, right? I think so. The time we are in is just a very basic stream of Christianity needs to be agreed upon, which all the churches agree upon, right? Right now it doesn't matter. You could actually, like I do, go to one church, different church every time, right? So like,
Yeah,
sometimes I go to a Baptist church. I like them, they're nice people. I like the idea that you only baptize once you are of age and understanding of why you're baptizing. I like that idea. I even go to
yeah,
Church of England. It doesn't matter to me, like in that sense, right? Pentecostal churches, like they're fun. They're very Disney
yeah,
like.
yeah.
They have a lot of
Pentecostal.
music and stuff,
Yeah,
like they got
yeah,
everything going for them. And like it's sort of like, it doesn't matter at this time, right? We need to come together first, all of the Christian churches, fight for Christianity, and sort of like this right now, the main dangers that we have, push them out first, and all the other matters you could discuss afterwards. Like all the other matters are, I'm pretty sure, are not even of concern to God, right? And even if
yeah,
if it is true that there is a Jesus and God, I don't think so it matters to them about what pathway that you take towards them, right? It doesn't, most likely doesn't
Well,
matter to
yeah,
them.
I think that's right. I think there's basically there's things that you can agree on. I think that the Church of England Book of Common Prayer is pretty good on all this sort of stuff. It's things like the Apostles' Creed, the Nicene Creed, um, the Scripture, and basically, if you kind of agree on those
Hmm.
kind of principles,
Yeah.
then you can unify around those,
Yeah.
you know, and you can argue about the other things later. I used to be very dogmatic, and I would have been, oh no, you've got to be a
Hmm.
born again evangelical, Christian
Yeah.
to be a true believer. And I'm not going away from that, by the way. I'm not going
Hmm.
away from that at all. But what I'm saying is, I believe there's many people in the Coptic churches, in the Orthodox churches,
Hmm.
in the Catholic Church that are 100% Christian, and it's, if we agree on the basics, I think it's what C.S. Lewis, I think, called mere Christianity. It was basically agreeing on
Hmm.
those basics, and
Yeah.
then you work it out from there. So
Hmm.
if you believe that Jesus Christ is God, you believe that he died on the cross for our sins, you believe that he rose again, you
Yeah.
believe that he's ascended to heaven, he's coming back to judge the earth.
Yeah.
That's basically the Apostles' Creed.
Yeah. I mean,
Boil it down into in a
resurrection is pivotal to the belief, right? And that's where
Really? Mm,
that's where like I am not there, right? If I was there,
yeah,
then I would
yeah,
baptize, right? Because that is
yeah,
pivotal. Like if you do believe in reality that he died
yeah,
and he came back, but in his material self as well, not in some spirit or
yeah.
something which
No,
gives
it's
importance
it's a
to the world.
it's
Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
physical it's
Yeah.
it's a physical bodily resurrection,
Yeah.
and the idea is that Christ is seated in heaven with a
Mm,
physical human
yeah.
body, and he returns to
Yeah.
the earth with a physical human
Yeah.
body to judge it. And I don't have a problem believing any of that.
Yeah.
My biggest problem is always me. My problem is not believing the Christianity
Mm,
stuff. My
yeah.
problems, my problems, my own frailty, weakness,
Yeah.
and stupidity. That's my problem. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's not. I don't have a problem with any of the God
Yeah.
stuff. I believe all that 1 million
Yeah.
percent. But when I look in the mirror, I go, well, what sort of a Christian are you? So,
But
and I think probably everyone's like that.
yeah, I mean, I think so. This is how we sort of win. If we want to win against Islam, this is how we win, right? Apart from the fact, like
That's right.
the political stuff that we need to do, right? That's different from the spiritual stuff that needs to be done, and cultural stuff that needs to be done. Obviously, the political stuff is that you get rid of all the bad actors, like of the
Yeah,
obvious criminals and illegals and sort of stuff like that. That's the
yeah,
political side of it, right? But how we win against Islam is by inviting them to Christianity, right? By inviting them to leave their religion, and find their religion, understand their religion to be a corrupted religion, a corrupted ideology,
yeah,
and leave it. Because I remember obviously I know growing up as a Muslim, right? And then I hear about like how my wife like grew up in the Catholic fold and stuff. It's a huge difference how like how they interacted with their faith and how we interacted with the
yeah,
faith, right? And there's no spirituality in Islam and stuff, and so people are missing. So I know when people leave Islam eventually, like I did, they just deny everything then, because then there's nothing. They've never been introduced to proper spiritual side of things, unless there's some people who like go towards Sufism. They have a spiritual side to them, and it's easier to have them probably convert to Christianity and stuff. Or people who know about Hinduism, because Hinduism, like, yeah,
yeah,
it's you know whatever it is, but it has a lot of spiritual side to it, because there's a lot of it's very old. So the teachings and stuff and the wisdom and stuff, it's very much based on the people over there, but it has been developed over time, right? And they over there is a very huge spiritual side to things, right? Islam doesn't have
yeah.
that. So the more people understand, like, that's the way to defeat, um you know by inviting people. And you can't invite people to Christianity unless you're strong about it, unless you are sure about
I,
it, unless you
I
are not dilly-dallying
abs-
about it, unless you don't have interfaith stuff.
I think that's absolutely right. I think that the reality is you've got to you've got to believe it first. You've got to absolutely, completely believe
Mm.
it. So you've got to, like, there's no point in, if you don't believe in the resurrection, you can't say you're a Christian. It's just, it's you just can't, because you're not.
Mm.
So it's like,
Yeah.
you've got to believe in those basics, and then you've got to. And again, the more I look at this, the more I look at the problems we've got in the country, and you go, well, we've tried the political route for years. We've just burned ourselves out. We smashed our heads off a
Mm.
brick wall. It's really not. It's not getting us to the place that we need to be.
No.
So, and listen, I mean, people shouldn't become Christians because they want to save the country, even though that's
Yeah.
probably a fine reason. But it's not. They should become Christians because they believe in Christ and they trust in Christ, and
Yeah.
they want to have that, deep, loving relationship with a loving God.
Yeah.
And I think the thing about Islam is, and again, you obviously
And
you've lived it.
I would interject at that
Momus,
as
I
well.
have.
Like, if they should, if they want a citizenship in the kingdom beyond, right, in the actual kingdom of the Christ,
Yeah,
that's why they should
yeah,
believe in it, not because of what's happening over
yeah.
here.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And I think that's a really important point, that if people come, it shouldn't be because they want to save the country, or because it's to annoy, it's to stand
Hmm.
against Islam. You should be coming to Christianity because you believe it, and that God's drawing you in that direction, and God wants you to be in a fellowship with him. And I think
Yeah.
that's really, really, really important. But no, I mean, I think this is something that, to me, our movement has done an amazing work at, to be honest with you, Momus, because if you think of every single event that we've done, has had a massive amount of Christianity. From St.
Hmm.
George's Day last year, when we had, I think, 3 or 4 people preaching from the Bible.
Hmm.
Then first of June, we had the Lord's Prayer on stage. We had Ricky Doolan doing worship music. We had a preacher. Exactly the same at Trafalgar Square. We had a massive amount of faith-based stuff. Same in October. Same at the end of January. So the Uniting the Kingdom movement has, for the first time ever, brought genuine Christianity
Hmm.
into right-wing politics in the UK, and it's brought people together
Yeah.
from, you think about when we were in that little room on Fleet Street. Was that last year or the year
Hmm.
before? Was that last year? Was it last year or
I
the year
think so
before?
that
Was it
was the year
2023?
before. I think so. It's
No, it
23,
wasn't. It
was
was
it?
last year. No, it was last
You
year. It was
sure?
last year. It was 24.
God.
Yeah, yeah. It was July last year. It was July last year.
Mhm.
So we all met in that room in Fleet Street, and I think that was a very, very defining moment. And then
Hmm.
obviously Jordan Peterson came in,
Hmm.
but Jordan Peterson said something, and you touched on it as well, Momus, regarding this. By the way, we're meant to be talking about policing. Apologies if we really are in trouble for
Yeah.
false advertising, because we talked about policing for about 10 minutes, and we talked about Christianity ever since. But I think it's an important thing to talk about, because I think it's so, key to what we're trying to do.
Hmm.
Jordan Peterson came in, and we were talking about how we do what we do, and we talked about Christianity, and we said, and Christianity is really important, and we've got to spread this message. And all he said was tread lightly, right?
Hmm.
And I thought that was very interesting, in view of the way he's always been pressured to say whether he's a believer or not, and he never does. And I always used to think, come on, you're sitting
Yeah.
on the fence here. But I think he probably is a believer, right,
Hmm.
in his own way, because he's got this very unusual
It's a
brain,
similar thing that I have going as well. Like, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I think he probably believes it in all of it. Actually, I
Yeah. Yeah.
think he probably believes in
Hmm.
the whole including the
Yeah.
resurrection. But I think with Jordan, what he's doing, he's being very clever, because he's managing to attract people to reading the Bible and interacting
Hmm.
with the Scripture by saying, well, what's this story telling us?
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the story of Adam and Eve?
Yeah.
What's this story of Cain and Abel? What's all this
Yeah.
about, this greed and this envy and
Yeah.
this bit that causes someone to murder his brother? What's behind that, and what that
Hmm.
does? Whether, if he doesn't know what he's doing, I'm sure he's a very clever man. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Hmm.
It brings people along
Yeah.
the path but he does it without saying you must be born again. He
Yeah,
doesn't, and I,
that's
which, like I say,
exactly
I
like what
believe
I'm.
in, but
Yeah, yeah,
he
what
does
I'm
it very
trying to do
gently.
as well. Like, yeah, because this
Yeah,
is the way to actually convince people better. Because like
yeah,
in my case, I'm actually on the journey myself as well, and I'm probably like, because he's a
exactly.
lot older than me as well, so like he didn't used to believe it, and then eventually the more he investigated, he ended up believing it
Yeah,
himself. But it's a better way of bringing people towards you, like making them understand like the journey is the most important part. How you do things is a lot more important than where you end up, because that defines you as a person, how you play the game. Which is why if we are bringing back to the policing and politics and stuff, this is why I've
mm,
always been against Nigel Farage, is because I've always said how you play the game defines you, right? And he always plays the game dirty. And it doesn't matter if he's right or if he's wrong. That just shows you everything you want to know about that person. That the way that he's playing the
yeah,
game is absolutely dirty. He says he's outside the establishment. He's been in politics for 30 years and he plays like a dirty politician. Right? And why do you think like he's gonna uphold any of his promises? And the people around him as well, the yes sirs around him, all of them, right? They all as dirty as him. They all have skeletons in,
mm,
in in their closet. Have you ever seen this guy
yeah.
ever promoting or even going to church, right? You never
No,
never see this
no.
person. How can he lead you then? How can he lead anyone then?
Mm. Exactly, exactly. And I think that's a big hole in. I mean, I think he is a sort of nominal. I don't know if he believes, but I think he's kind of nominal. But I think that's a weakness in all of the political parties.
Mhm.
There are Christians, and even in the Labour Party. I mean, but I think that's a problem in all the political parties, that they've got such an anti-God agenda. I mean,
Mm.
when you look at the abortion statistics,
Mm.
off the chart frightening. I mean, like,
Yeah.
what, quarter of a million a year or something like that for
Mm.
30, 40 years, maybe more. Well, since 1969. So
Mm.
what's that? 50 years, over 50
Mm.
years, and it's now like, I think it's sitting around quarter of a million people a year. So
Mm.
you can do the maths. It's horrendous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we've got this assisted, so-called assisted dying. Well, assisted dying used to be called murder. you
Yeah.
know, so we got, and I know none of these things are simple, and it's very easy to glibly say, oh, well, that shouldn't happen, and then
Mm.
people can come to you with all the hard cases and all that sort of thing. But I think we've got, so we've we've legislated against Christianity and Christian principles for so long,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now with the pandering to Islam. But I do think that the only solution is, for Islam, is not war, not, but a lot of people, that academic, and I'm a bit, do you know what? I'm a bit suspicious of this academic that's got so much airtime, talking about, have you seen this guy, David someone or other? Seems like a nice fella, but he's talking there will be a civil war, there will be a civil war. And I
Mm.
look at that and I'm going, really? I
Who?
mean, don't get me wrong, I know how bad
The
things
oh
are.
yeah, yeah, the Civil War guy,
Yeah,
the
the guy.
Canadian who's
Yes, it's David someone or other. He's an
yeah,
academic. Look,
yeah,
he's a
yeah.
bona fide academic. He's not a wacko. But I'm looking
Mm.
at him and I'm going, um, well, we need if that's what you think is going to happen, we need to find an alternative to that, because
Yeah, yeah.
if
I
anybody's
mean, in a way,
even lived,
he's not wrong, right? He's not wrong in that sense that this is going to happen. But like, because I've been saying like this is going to happen. There will be civil war, but I'm also saying unless we do this, we need
yeah,
to do this, right?
yeah,
And this is what like people are not
yeah,
promoting. Like, what is the solution? The solution cannot be
yeah,
that, oh, we will put the pieces back together from the ashes. No, I don't want it to go down that way, right? Because there's a
no,
lot of pain and anguish
no,
and hurt down that way. A lot will be destroyed in that process. People really need to look up what happens in revolutions, actual bloody revolutions, right? People, like, even on the left or the right, when they think like, oh yeah, we can have like French Revolution and stuff, they don't understand what happened in the French Revolution. The devil basically came out to play in that revolution. So if we have a way of fighting this and reversing it and course correcting, then we should be promoting
Yep.
that. And the way that we should be doing is like we should be trying to create an environment, not forcing people to believe in one way or another, but an environment that is
Yep.
conducive to for Christianity to flourish and for people to flourish alongside with it, right? That's what we need to do. That's what we need to promote. The policies that we need to promote, the community work that we all need to do, come together for and stuff. I've been thinking as well, like maybe like of starting a campaign to buy back one of the churches from Church of England and start that sort of ball rolling, and get the community together and like, renovate that church or something and bring people back, give that church to a church that is teaching in the right way, still with the teaching of the Christ, and not going like Church of England way, doing something like that, you know just creating more spaces, because that's what Islam is doing right now. They are creating a political will, right? Uh,
Yep.
that's how they're pushing it, that's how they're lobbying towards it, and then they're creating spaces towards they're creating spaces for people, right? Like creating mosque and stuff like that. It doesn't mean that they have people over there right now, but they're going to attract people, right? So there's a way that they're doing it. They're doing it for the wrong reasons, but I think so we can do it for the right reason. I really feel like there's something that I need to do, but I don't know, like even if I put up, like if people are going to support or not, because we become so unchristian people that they might not support me buying a church and renovating it and bringing it back into the fold. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
so, like
and
we need to do something.
I think, and again, don't take this the wrong way when I say this. I think to do that, to actually buy a church and bring it back to being a Christian church, you probably need to be a Christian to do that. Do you know what I mean? Because otherwise,
Mhm.
what's it
Yeah,
going to be? Who,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what's going to be preached there? What's going to be taught there?
Mm.
Because what
But
you'll
you
end
should
up with
like
is just
give it,
like
like
another.
give it to
Yeah.
the church, right? Not like yourself. Don't keep
Yeah,
it to
yeah. Oh,
yourself,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Just
Yeah,
buy it and give it. Yeah, find
yeah,
find some genuine believers and
yeah,
get them to to do it. I mean,
yeah.
because when I first started doing this in 2017, there's a mate of mine, Dan McDevitt. He was a veteran, and he was from up north. I'm not saying which town it was, but it was a town up in the northwest. And he drove me around the town, and it was
Mm,
literally segregated. Half of it was Muslim, half of it was white English working
mm,
class, right? And the Muslims, it was very fundamentalist. They were like, women were all burqa'd up. It was, the
mm,
guys were all wearing the sort of,
mm.
I don't know what they call
Yeah,
them, the long dress type things
yeah,
that wear. So
yeah,
it was very Islamic, the Muslim side, but what shocked me was the amount of churches that had been turned into masjids. It was just
yeah,
like, I'm like, what is going on here?
mm,
That there's Islamic
yeah,
schools, there's mosques, and that really, when I saw that, I was like, man, that, because obviously, because I live in
yeah.
Northern Ireland, um, even if
Those
I
are
came to England,
markers,
I
like
wasn't.
like you have you plant the flag, right? That's
Yeah,
what it is. You capture the flag and you plant your own flag, and that's what's happening to them. That's the thing, and it becomes a norm. Then it
absolutely.
becomes a norm, like especially when your own king is supporting it, when your own like elites are supporting it. It becomes a norm, and pretty soon, I think so. If we don't start some sort of trend to get this back, we will still have Christians over here. We will have a lot of
Yeah,
secular people over here, like as usual, but we will have an Islamic way of doing things. Like it will convert,
yeah.
and won't take that
Oh,
long.
well, it's happening already. It's happening
Yeah.
already. I mean, if you look at the celebrations, you look at what happened,
Mm,
with the end of Ramadan. I mean, it has been. I honestly, do you know what I think, Momus? I genuinely think this. I think the British establishment has made a decision that
mm.
sorry, not Christianity, that Islam is going to be the dominant force in the
From a
UK,
long time ago.
and they're just, yep, absolutely. And they're working out how to accommodate that. And that's why I
Mm,
say, I mean, I put this morning on Twitter, and it was just a thought. I put, politics isn't the answer, violence isn't the answer, intellect isn't the answer, Christ is the answer, and there's something along those lines. And, because I'm more and more, I'm looking at what we've achieved in the last 8 years of doing, you know, politics and street
Mm.
demonstrations and all the rest of it. And yeah, it's been good, and we've got a lot of people together, and we built a bit of momentum. But we do absolutely need that spiritual solution
Mhm.
to make this stuff work, and it needs to be done, like we said earlier, for spiritual, not for selfish reasons to save the country,
Yeah.
but to
Yeah.
basically to bring the country back on the, you know, on the right path. Otherwise, we'll end up with a secular Islamist coalition running the
Yeah.
country, and it will be a totalitarian state without a shadow. I don't know
Yeah.
how it's going to
And
work, though. I don't know
well,
how the
well, it will work
LBTQ,
like Turkey,
especially the
right?
trans lobby.
It
Yeah,
will work like Turkey when if there's an Ataturk, then it won't be that Islamic, and as soon as Ataturk goes, someone else comes in, it will become very Islamic. Then it will have back and forth and back and
yeah,
forth, and this is why, like when people
yeah,
say they don't need religion and stuff, I really want people to investigate that. And I'm saying that as someone who was a militant atheist and stuff, right? I really want people to investigate this claim that we can rise above it, especially right now when you have an enemy that is confirmed in their faith, right? You, and this is
yeah,
what people don't understand. They take their religion very seriously. They take their scripture very seriously.
yeah,
Now, it might be wrong according to us, but they take it very seriously. So what happens? What will happen if you're a secular person trying to deal with it? What will you do? At most you
yeah,
will go politically, you will get rid of the extremists, you will get rid of the hate preachers and stuff as you see them, right? And that's it, that's all you will do. Or maybe you will say, okay, the on the immigration side we won't have some immigration from some of these countries, right? But you let it be then, right? Because you can't go,
yeah,
how can a liberal mind go against any religion? But they can't say like, everyone has a right, right? So everyone has a human right. So when they have a human right to
yeah,
believe what they want to believe, and on the basis of faith, you're not saying that that belief of theirs is wrong, then you allow them to exist, right? And then
yeah,
that people that you think are moderate, through them will again,
yeah,
this problem will come again. And when this problem comes again, this also people need to understand, when this problem comes again next time, right now, if you just deal with what reform is saying, just do some deportations, let Islam be, because Islam is a religion of peace, whatever the hell, right? When this problem comes again in 50 years, we won't be able to solve it, because their numbers would have grown that
absolutely,
much, their influence would have grown that
absolutely,
much, and
yeah,
then when that problem
totally,
comes again, in a 50 more years, that's it for Britain. It
yeah,
will be Islamic then, you
exactly.
know
And I think if there was a massive turning to Christianity among Muslim people, has that ever happened anywhere on the planet? Has there ever been a situation where a country has, without coercion, gone, or even where, you know, a Muslim population has moved en masse and gone from, you know, one place to another, and then converted to Christianity en masse? Has that ever happened in Africa anywhere? Well, I think
no.
it has actually in Africa. I think
Africa,
I
yeah,
think
yeah, yeah.
if you look at, I mean, if you look at Sierra Leone, when I was in Sierra Leone, I found it very interesting. A lot of Sierra Leone was a 70% Muslim country, but when I was there, the area I was staying in was overwhelmingly Christian, and a lot of the Muslims were
Mm,
coming out of Islam and coming to Christ. But the problem is, then you have what happens in Nigeria, where the militants
mm,
come in, and they're not all Boko Haram. Some of them are just
yeah.
crazy Islamic tribesmen who really believe, you know,
Mm,
that this is the right thing to do, and they're going in and just slaughtering the Christians, like,
yeah.
you know, wholesale. And
Mm,
so it is. It's very difficult to look into a crystal ball and say, well, this will happen. But
yeah.
you know, if we believe, if we can keep, and this is where freedom of religion is really important. This is what worries me, and this does bring us back to the police state thing. If we
Mm,
don't have freedom to go and speak to our Muslim neighbors about Christianity, and sometimes in a forceful way, saying, look, I mean,
mm,
my cards on the table. I say this all the time on Twitter. I believe Islam is an antichrist religion, and I think I can back that
Mm.
up from the Bible. I don't think that's an outrageous thing to say, because it denies the deity of Christ, it denies the death. It obviously, if it denies the death of Christ, it denies the resurrection, etc., etc. Denies so many tenets of Christianity. So it denies the Trinity. So I think it's fair to say that. Um, but is it possible for us to do that, to actually see mass conversions among Muslim people? And has that ever happened?
Um, I don't think so. It has happened from the Muslims side. I don't know about any time when that would have happened. It's because the stakes are very high for them to leave Islam, right? I know what has happened is this has happened under Alfred, right? And onwards, when the pagan Vikings were converted, and that was the only way to assimilate them properly, right? um,
Yep.
their religion was very much similar to Islam in the sense of warrior type thinking religion, right? So they only believed in material things and material conquest and stuff. um, and I don't think so anyone now I don't think so anyone has converted like that. And I mean, freedom of religion as well, like, okay, they might be able to believe in their religion here as they want to believe it, right? But we should recognize that we should base the laws on Christian laws and say, like, okay, you might want to believe that, but we don't agree with your halal food. We don't agree with you actually having minaret mosques and stuff. You can probably have community halls at most, you cannot build mosques, right? And we actually should not be allowing any other religion to build their temples and mosques and stuff over here as well, right? Now this might be controversial for people because be like, oh, what about Jews and stuff like that. I was like, well, we have to say to everyone, like, you can have community centers, but you can only build churches over here, right? We or whatever, we might not need to go that extreme, but we have to take certain steps to say, if you want to be over here and follow your religion, you basically have to do that at home, right? Not saying that you can't openly be your own religion and stuff, but your religion will not be given accommodation over here. You will not have like, oh, because you're fasting, so we will let you do this or that. No, like, oh, you want to go for Friday prayers or whatever, so we'll give you a break in that. No, 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 that's not going to happen, right? So you take away the incentives, you take away the incentives, and if they still love their religion and stuff, then they'll leave and they'll go to other 29
Yeah.
other Islamic countries where they can exercise their beliefs openly, right? But over here, if they want to believe, then that paves the way for their future generations to assimilate or want to assimilate, right? Investigate more into their faith and understand that Christianity is better, and then they convert to Christianity. And it's not like I know that's what people come up with, like, as well, like, that Jews don't attack us and stuff, and I agree with that. Jews and Sikhs and don't attack us, but once you open the gate for one, then you have to open the gate for another, and this is what happens within secular laws, right? Because you say you can allow Jews up to a point because it's Judeo-Christian like sort of values and stuff, but like, when it comes to Sikhs, when it comes to Hindus, when it comes to like, how how much further would you go? How can you say that? How can you allow Hindus to have their temples? And a lot of people might be angry at me saying this, but how can you allow Hindus to have their temple then, and then say Islam is not a valid religion? Well, according to you, no other religion is valid, right? So if you build your laws on that basis, then you can deny everyone and say, no, there won't be any Sikh temples, there won't be any Hindu temples, there won't be any mosque or whatever. There will only be churches over here, and anyone who wants to believe in their own ways, they can believe in their own ways. But they will not be given religious status, they will not have religious exemptions, and they will not build it as markers, they will not build it as temples, and they will not build it as minaret mosque and stuff to you know these sort of things that I think so. Who will bring this in policy? There is no one that will bring this in policy, because there's no actual Christian leader that we have. So unless we build the environment for this to actually take hold, I think so we'll be dealing with the problem of Islam again and again and again. And if you think about it, if the number of Hindus increased in an area, that changes as well. That changes the whole environment, right? That changes England. They might not be aggressive, but they don't have to be aggressive to start changing that area. So I think so people really need to understand
Yeah.
what they want right now.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think that's right. I think I mean, and I'd never actually gone. I mean, if I said that as a sort of Christian, I would probably get shredded for saying it. So you can probably get away with that, Momus, as a kind of deist ex-Muslim saying that. But I think I'd never
Yeah,
thought about that, and I think that's I don't know whether even me, and I'm quite radical. I don't know if we get away with passing laws like that, and I don't think any
yeah.
party that we've got out there at the minute
This is
would
why I
stand on
fear.
that ticket. Yeah, yeah,
This
yeah.
is why I
I
fear for
mean,
the future, because I don't think so. We're fighting this properly unless we
yeah,
do that.
yeah. I go back. I suppose my counter to that would be because again, I mean, and the reality is, I suppose if you look at the this is where I've said to people, and people sort of buckle at the knees when you say this, when you go on channels and you say, well, look, actually, Christianity is not a tolerant religion. In fact, no religion, no true, sort of monotheistic religion is tolerant because we all believe we've got the truth. If you're Jewish, you believe you've got the truth. If you're
Mm,
Muslim, you believe you've got the truth. If you're Christian, you believe you've got the truth, right? So none of our religions are tolerant, and they're not actually meant to be tolerant. So this idea of
mm,
tolerance is not a Christian virtue at all,
yeah,
because tolerance brings you exactly what you just
yeah,
outlined there. You're either going to end up being overwhelmed by one religious demographic or another. So maybe the only way to do that, if it's not your way of legislating, because I'm always very worried
mm,
about legislating
yeah,
for a particular religion, because I don't think that's the way Christianity has grown successfully. I think it's when it's imposed top down, it doesn't work. When it comes from revival and a spiritual awakening, it does work, right?
mm,
So to me, my counter would be, well, let's see what God can do, and if we can see a revival, and we can see, you know, 50% of the Muslims becoming Christians. I think it'd be really funny if the 50% that became Christians were women, because that would really mess up
mm,
the bullying Muslim men that are keeping their wives in place by all sorts of
yeah.
coercion and so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a very
That is the
interesting
preferred way, though.
interesting idea.
That is a preferred
Yeah,
way, even
the
for
third
me.
way is that, yeah,
Yeah,
that, and
that we
this is
don't legislate for
where
it.
it really is. No, you don't legislate for it. It happens by a spiritual awakening,
Mm,
because when I read stories, and I've known a lot of Muslims that have come to Christ. Some of them were involved in the movement, you know, years ago, and I still in contact with a lot of Muslims that came to Christ. And when they came to Christ, they became the most devout Christians that you could ever come across. I mean,
mm,
they were just on it, like full throttle. And I think you hear about them in Iran and in the Middle East having dreams and visions and seeing Christ, and Christ comes to visit them in
mm,
their dreams, and they have these really deep spiritual encounters. And if that sort of stuff started happening among the Muslim communities, I mean, you imagine some of these Sufi guys, not Sufi
mm,
guys, the Salafis, the real, sort of
mm,
hardcore Quran
mm,
only, sort of people.
mm,
If they started becoming
mm,
believers, and some of the extremists started becoming Christian believers, it would totally
yeah,
diffuse the time
mm,
bomb that's ticking
yeah.
in the middle of our country at the
But it
minute.
won't
You
happen
know,
like that, that's the
and
thing. Like we
and
have to create
it's
the environment for it. Like it won't happen unless
I
we
agree.
create the environment. Right now, they see Christianity as weak because people even who say that they are Christians,
Yeah,
they're not acting as Christians, right?
yeah,
We all have like broken families and stuff. Like we have so much issues, like family wise and stuff like that. We're not doing as well as we should be. We're letting trans people run our churches and stuff. So it's become a joke.
yeah,
We made Christianity into a joke.
yeah,
So like the only reason why to legislate for those things would be is that the public is weak and the elite want to take charge, right? But that's not what's going to happen. It could help us, like if we legislate against the things that I was saying, how we fight back politically. But the other way of doing it is like a reawakening in people. The public needs to reawake to the point of, like, and believing in Christianity, taking back the churches from Church of England. Because collectively, we all of us collectively, there are more people, we have a lot of money and a lot of power to actually get this going. That is a way of like reaffirming the faith, creating that environment where people can believe in it and are not forced to believe in it. If they want to come towards it, they can come towards it. If they just want to be cultural Christian, like people are, fine. Like, hopefully their generations down the line will come back to the faith or whatever it might be. But at least we make it conducive enough where the populations of even of Muslims and stuff, they see value in Christianity, and they are attracted towards it, and they understand, like, okay, maybe they don't have to be in a religion that just constantly hates everyone, right? And then
Yeah.
hopefully, they come towards it. Even Jews, Hindus and Sikhs, I hope they comes towards Christianity as well, right? They leave their religions and say, okay, you know what, Christianity is a better way of leading your life and stuff, and they come towards it. But we
Mm.
can't do that unless we are not confirmed in that, and we don't show strength by faith as well.
And that's it. And again, I mean, you know, none of us, we're all very, very far from perfect, and we're all very aware of that. So we're not sitting here saying, oh, look, you know, we're, great shining examples. The only example in Christianity is Christ himself. No, none of his followers were perfect men. They all had,
Mm,
you know, pasts and flawed characters and so on and so forth. But
mm,
it's about pointing people, you know, to in Christianity, it's about always pointing people at Christ, away from yourself, away from religion, saying, look, follow
mm,
him.
yeah.
That's what John the Baptist did. Don't follow me, follow him. And I think,
Mm,
and again, when I think when you do that in a genuinely gracious and caring way to someone, because I think what you said about the street, I used to be a street preacher years ago, and it wasn't very successful. But the reality is that if you try and reach out to people, there's friends of mine that are absolutely fantastic at this, and they just make friends with people, and then they
mm,
talk about Jesus and talk about Christ and talk about the love of Christ and talk about their experiences in their walk with Christ, and they win their friends over. And these are people
mm,
that are in their 40s and 50s. So it's not just happening among the young, it's happening. I think there's something, there is something happening. I don't think it's a full revival yet, but I think
it'll
it's
take
something
time.
that's, and that's why I wanted to talk to you about that. I actually didn't intend talking about this tonight, but every time we
Mm,
talk, we end up talking about this
yeah.
moment. We end up
Yeah.
talking about, and I think it's really exciting. I think it's really good because you've got such a broad understanding from where you've been. So you've come from Islam, like, don't want to know about God. Iron Hersey Ali's another one. You look at
Yeah.
Iron Hersey Ali, look at the journey she's been on. I mean, she
Mm,
went from, you know, I don't know whether she had FGM, but I think she had a very abusive, I think,
mm,
time as a child, and then she came to Holland, became an atheist, became an MP. Actually, was like with the four horsemen
mm,
of new atheism. Dawkins and co. She was like right up there, along with people like Douglas Murray as well. They were all,
mm,
trumpeting how great Dawkins was,
mm,
and now they've realised it was a complete. it,
yeah.
it was a complete disaster, and has
Yeah.
led to a lot of the wokeness and nonsense that we're
Mm,
seeing, and left a massive open goal for
mm.
radical Islam. And she's now fully, as far as I can tell, fully believing everything.
I mean,
She's
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 on
she's fully
she's
in.
on her way. I
And
think so. What she said, like, she didn't want to discuss that fully. I don't know if she has or not discussed it fully, but she's on that journey as well. Like, she's probably
yeah,
further down in that journey. But you know,
mm,
it's kind of
mm,
funny because a lot of those people like that say like, oh, if it wasn't for Islam, right, then the secular
mm.
movement would have been fine. What people don't understand, like, if it wasn't Islam, it would have been something else, right? And that's the thing, like,
Yeah,
devil
yeah,
has
yeah.
ways of
Like
playing stuff.
communism came from secular atheism. I mean, for goodness sake,
Exactly.
Nazism came from
Yeah.
communism. So I mean, like,
Yeah.
the two most evil forces, and
Mm.
this is what people forget about communism. And I mean, we probably haven't got too many communists watching, but which is a shame because it'd be good to get someone and see what they thought and have a chat with them. And I think we should start doing that, Momus, as well. Try and get people on who challenge what we're saying,
Mm.
in terms of actually get people on the channel maybe and have people that absolutely disagree with us, as long as they're not
Mm.
absolute idiots. Because like
Yeah.
a lot, a lot of I find a lot of lefties are just not willing to engage. They just
Yeah.
want to, they just want to,
Yeah.
live in sound bites, instead of
Yeah.
actually getting into a proper,
Yeah.
dialogue. Because obviously they're wrong. So
Yeah.
so they're bound to be abusive, you know what I mean? But yeah, we should maybe try and get some people on, and maybe get
Mm.
some Muslims on and have a, not to be
Mm.
dogmatic, but just talk quietly about you know where we're coming from
Mm.
and where they
Mm.
are, and
Yeah.
see what happens, because I think that could
Mm.
be, yeah, I mean, I think that could be another way of
Mm.
another way of looking at it. But yeah, yeah, no, I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think we've kind of gone right the way around the houses there, Momus, and again, we always bring God up when we have these conversations,
Mm.
which I think it shows what's on your mind quite a lot.
Yeah. 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 I think so. Like, the thing is,
Yeah,
like, it's such sort of negative end times for people, and if we're not
yeah,
careful, we will spiral into darkness, right? Like in our own heads and stuff, and it
yeah,
happens a lot. And the only way that you can actually get out of it is having faith in that it will be fine, right? And then trying to find a way of how it will be fine. I think so. um yeah, I think so. People, this is the reason why people are turning towards Christianity, right? Either they're becoming very indifferent of things
yeah,
around them, which I see a lot of people doing as well. Oh, I'll just go down the pub, I'll just go
yeah,
watch matches and like go watch footy and stuff like that. They're becoming completely indifferent. Or people who actually care are turning to Christ, because they want something better. They
yeah,
want a better vision, right? And there's no other vision that is already provided, that's already better, right? Politically, like I said, politically you can't solve these things, because these things will keep coming up. How can we solve politically when 90% of the public do not even understand their own political system? And that is true. They don't understand their political system. They don't know which party is what. They just want to, oh, I'll just vote reform, and they'll solve everything. They don't even know that reform doesn't have any policies, actual detailed policies. All the
yeah,
policy points that they take, actually, it's very funny. The policy points that they are taking are actually SDP points. Most of them are SDP points. While SDP actually has a detailed way of how to get their policies, they just take the headline
yeah,
and they push it out there. They don't know how to do it. They're all SDP points,
yeah.
and but if people were more aware
No,
of politics, and if they liked their policy, those policy points, they would actually become SDP members rather than reform members, right? But this
yeah,
is how disengaged people
yeah,
are. So we can't save people politically, in that sense. We have to have this cultural and spiritual revival, where people start feeling like, the community matters, one another matter, this nation matters, and the people of this nation matter. Like there is value
yeah,
in maintaining the native population to be the majority and to be the population in the future. There is a value in it, right? Because they bring some value to the whole world, not just to their own lands, but to the whole world. We need to come back to those points,
yeah.
but that won't happen politically.
No, no, it won't. I mean, and it's only by you know a miracle of the God that so few people, so few people seem to believe in now in the UK. And I think it's, I know when I've strayed from the path that, that's when I get miserable and get myself into all sorts of problems. And when I'm doing my best to walk on the right path, that's when I'm, and look, like I said, I've always said this, I don't say, look at me, I say, look at Christ. But I know from personal experience, when I'm trying my best to stumble along that path to the best of, as well as I can with the help of God, then things tend to go okay for me. And if I if I fall off the path and just mess up, then things go bad. And I think the reason I'm saying that is not because I'm not talking about me, because nobody's really interested in what I do, but is because that happens on a national scale. And if you read the Bible, if you read the Old Testament, when Israel walked away from God, judgment came, invaders came, they got hammered by the Amalekites, the Philistines. It was always the ites, and then it was the Babylonians, and then it was, so every time, and then of course the Romans, and every time, Israel strayed from the truth, there was problems. And that's exactly the same in the UK. If you look at the state the UK's in now, I mean, if it was a God-fearing, holy, Christian country, I think a lot of the problems that we've got would be sorted out. And when you look at the history of revivals in the UK, you find out that when, the Welsh revival, 1904, Evan Roberts, one man basically went on a, almost like, I was going to say a crusade, but went on a sort of revival tour around Wales. 100,000 people became Christians. And even the pubs closed because people weren't going out getting drunk anymore. The magistrates weren't convicting people. So they were like, they were the police were almost out of business because they weren't having to deal with crime. That's how much of an impact that genuine revival had on Wales. And it only lasted a very short time, only lasted for sort of 2 or 3 years. And then of course the First World War happened, and many of the young people that became Christians were probably killed and had all sorts of horrible things happen to them in the trenches. But even the pit ponies stopped working down the pits in Wales because all the men that were swearing like troopers, swearing like drunken sailors, or swearing like miners, they stopped swearing when they became Christians. And the whole atmosphere of the country changed. It happened in Northern Ireland in 1859, happened in the Hebrides in the 1940s. So if something like that happened on a global scale, not just UK, if that happened on a global scale, it would certainly change things. And obviously, you're never going to have a situation where everybody becomes a believer. But it's just that there's definitely. I think this is definitely something we're not talking about enough because we're all a bit shy about what we believe and what we say because we know what we are and we know we're flawed. But I think we should be talking about this more and saying, is this what's needed? Is this needed probably more than anything else, more than politics, more than, unite the kingdom? Is this what's needed? A genuine turning back to Christianity and Christ, Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the conclusion I'm coming to. I think, that it's not about, as much as I love doing.
I think so as well, because I think so once you do that, you will unite everything anyways, and you will find political solutions, because we don't need new laws to solve our politics, right? We don't need new laws to solve all the laws already exist that we can use right now to fix the problem or amend those laws. The other laws exist to amend those laws, to repeal the laws of the past, because this is why it's a living constitution, because we can repeal all the previous laws, right? We don't need that, and we don't even need to forcefully bring people together or something like that, right? So once you create the environment, it will unite, and it will create the political will out of it will come, and it will fix the problem. But we need a revival of spirit first.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. And that, and that would deal, without being trite, that would probably deal with your not fully being in on belief, because I think it's only by a miracle of God that you actually can, because what you've done, you've looked at the logic of Christianity, and the logic breaks down when you come to the resurrection. Everything else kind of makes
mm,
sense, but the atonement and the resurrection don't make sense in a logical way. Well, I
mm.
kind of think they do, but you can't actually become a Christian by logic. It's only by spiritual revelation. So until
Yeah,
God
yeah,
actually like
yeah.
opens your eyes and you see that the resurrection is
Mm.
true, that only God
That
can
is the
do,
final step.
then
Yeah.
so that's about this is so what you and everybody else that's in, because there's a lot of people like sort of at the door like you know,
Mm,
and nobody can push you through. Like
mm,
it's only God. I think it's I believe it's only God can pull you in by opening your
mm,
eyes and you go, oh yeah, actually I do believe that now. That's pretty
mhm.
cool. You know, you get
Yeah.
so and you can't be argued in that with clever arguments. You
Mm,
can't be it's something that you can only believe by revelation.
mm,
I think the Bible is very clear on that, and this is the whole idea of faith. So that's what we need. We need that spiritual awakening so that
mm,
Muslims do have dreams and visions and come out of Islam, without even having to go to atheism. They don't go to
mm,
they don't do the path that you and Apostate Prophet have been on, like where you go from Christianity to atheism. You just go straight from
mm,
you go from Islam to atheism, then to Christianity. You go straight from Islam to Christianity, and you don't
mm.
collect £200. You're straight in there. You know what I mean? So I think I think that's what we need. I think that's what we need, and I think we
Mm.
need it more than anything else, because anything else, right? Anything else is um, just froth, and it's
Yeah.
not. It's we've tried it all. We've tried
Yeah.
it all, and we've literally worn ourselves out trying. We've we've made very little progress, and
Mm.
even if we did make progress and got political power, that political power would become corrupt because it doesn't have a moral compass and a moral mooring. And
Yeah.
that's where I come back to Nick with UKIP and your guys in the SDP, if they're all
Mm.
Christians. You know what you need at the heart of these political parties is believers as well. So it has to
Yeah.
be, as well as a spiritual awakening, it has to
Yeah.
be a moral and political awakening that
Yeah.
brings everything back on track the way it
Yeah.
should. And I think Trump's got a lot of that. I think Trump's got a lot
Mm.
of Christians in his cabinet.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot
Yeah.
of,
I
I
mean,
don't, I'm not sure whether
SDP,
he is or not, but
SDP certainly has like a lot of Christians, like the chair of youth, the youth department, the chair of that. I was talking with him. Nice kid. He's Catholic. He's a
yeah,
historian and stuff. They have a lot of Christian core in it, and
mm,
they're doing the soft
yeah,
touch of it, which I like. Right, and their whole policies are
yeah,
based, like I
yeah,
said, on the social work of of Catholics, social values. you know so like they do a soft touch of it where they're inviting people towards it, and then naturally have those people coming in. And I really hope that more and more people who are probably like economically left leaning, like I am on some certain points and stuff. I don't really see myself left or right, like just whatever makes sense. But if
mm,
there people
yeah,
are,
yeah,
and
yeah.
people who
I
are
agree.
like old labor supporters and stuff, they need to look at SDP, because it is blue labor basically, SDP. And it is what like most of the country thinks
Yeah,
like that. If you look at the policies of SDP as well, most of the country actually is already there. They just need to look at them. They're very,
yeah,
you know their membership is very cheap and stuff like that as well. They just need more support. They don't want a big investor coming in and enforcing their value on them, because they have a party system like that, where every member can influence the policies and the change of leadership and stuff. So they don't want an investor coming in and taking that sort of away from the members. But I like whatever it
yeah,
might be, that's something for the future as well. But first, people need to self reflect on what they want. Like, okay, people don't like me talking about Christianity. That's fine. You can believe in whatever you want. You can believe in anything, right? But first, you have
mm,
to come to that realization. First step is come to the realization to think beyond yourself, to think beyond the material world.
yeah,
Once you start that step, it will always lead to somewhere good. You will always contribute something better in this world. Whether you end up believing completely in Christianity or not, it will be of benefit to others. It will create that environment where believers will flourish as well, right? that's the first step, and that's the main step that I want people to take. That's all my, like, request is for to people. Not that they become Christian or whatever. That's up to each person. That's not my business. The first step is to start thinking beyond themselves, start, like, caring for others more than they care for themselves as well, and stop, like, living in this such a materialistic world.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's right, but I think it's to me it's when you go down that road, if it's not based in the faith, it's basically, it's kind of, it might, in fact, it can actually have the opposite effect. You can think you're a really good person because you're doing all these good works and you're doing everything really, really, everything nice, and you end up in a situation where you miss the point, because you can have, look, you could have, I'm sure Richard Dawkins is a really nice man. I'm sure he gives
Hmm.
money to charity. He seems like a total gentleman, to be honest with you. I don't believe in what he believes, because obviously it's the complete opposite of what I believe. But he seems like a really nice guy. But at the end of the day, he doesn't have that which is capable of changing. Because you can be a nice person, right? You can be a really nice person, very generous, very kind. But if it's not grounded in the faith to a great extent, you're not going to pass that on to another generation. You're not going to, you're
Yeah,
not going to,
but at least you're
you're not
one
going to
step
really
closer,
change the
right?
culture and society.
The thing is, like, you
Yeah,
one step closer,
yeah,
you one step closer than the
yeah,
Muslims, and you one step closer than the person,
yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah,
than the really corrupt person, right?
yeah,
That's what I want. Like, once
yeah,
people are one step closer, then it's up to the faithful to attract them, right? First they need to, like, I just want them
yeah,
to shake people, and just,
yeah,
take that first step. Take that first step, get away from this
yeah,
materialistic side of yours, thinking always from that point of view.
yeah,
And hopefully, like, if the faithful are strong enough in their faith, they will attract you then, right? That's up to them. That's not like I
yeah.
can't we
Oh,
can't force
absolutely.
anyone, you know
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I totally agree with that. I mean, I think Jane Harper's making a good point here, and this is,
Mm.
this is something that I think every single believer's experienced at one time or another, to a greater or lesser extent. She says those who have known him and turn away will never have peace until they return. That's called backsliding in Christianity, where you
Mm.
kind of walked away from God.
Mm.
And then she says, and he accepts us back with open arms. He's faithful. I think that is absolutely spot on. And again, there's a lot of people in that situation as well, that maybe as young people or whatever were brought up in the faith, or they came to faith, and for whatever reason they've kind of walked
Mm.
away. That people have got to realize that there's absolutely, there's a way back in, there's a way back to, to Christianity. And again, guys, I'm sorry about the title of this, talking about police state. We did start talking about the police state, but what we do when we do a live when I do a live with Momus, we don't plan it. We don't have any scripts. We don't go, oh, we're going to talk about this, or we're going to talk about that. We just sit down and we're just like two blokes sitting in the pub, except we don't have any
Yeah.
beer. I don't think we have any beer. I don't have any beer. We're just sitting having a bit of crack, and
Mm.
not that sort of crack.
Yeah.
We're having a chit chat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's
We can end
that's
we can end on the
that's
police state if you want.
that's what's about. No, I think it would put a dampener on it. To be honest, we
Yeah.
did it. We've done the police state at the beginning. I think we're just. I think we're just. I think we're. I mean, we and the other thing is, we're going 1 hour 42 minutes, and we've had, bit lower than normal. Normally we're getting over 1,000. So I'm wondering what's going
Mm.
on. Is it maybe it's the time we're doing it? Maybe it's like tea time or something, and a lot
Yeah, I
of people
think
are
so.
traveling back from work or whatever. But it's and look at that. There you go. I'm a returning back player. He
Mm.
put me under conviction to come back to him. So even while we're doing this, right, and I think it's been a very gentle, non, aggressive way of just sharing what we believe and what we
Mm.
think's the answer. People are actually being affected by it, and I
Mm.
think that's fantastic. And we'll end on
Mm.
this. Christy, there we will end on the police state. Citizen K, he's been commenting all night. I don't know if it's a she or a he, but
Yeah,
anyway,
just she
whoever Citizen
did.
K is, I think it could be a lady, so I apologize. I can't see because I got my glasses
She is, yeah.
on. Is it okay? I apologize, Citizen K. So Christianity is the way out of a police state. Absolutely right, Citizen K. So, so thanks for that, guys. Thanks for everybody that tuned in. We're going to try and, I think, do more. We keep threatening to do more of these moments. I think we'll try and do more of these because I enjoy them. We'll maybe get some other guests on as well. And I've got a few ideas for different channels, because one of the things the YouTube don't like giving me money for some reason, which is a little bit frustrating. But right, I know. Sorry,
yeah.
I know who that is. That's Karen that helps out David.
Yeah,
So okay,
exactly.
I know who you are now. That's cool. Okay, I do it. My goodness, I'm even more embarrassed now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Karen, how are you? So yeah, great live stream. Really enjoyed it. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll maybe try and get into a more sort of regular groove of doing these sort of things. I think you can tell the direction of travel we're going in a minute. If you like that, great. If not, that's okay. You don't have to watch it. But and by the way, I also appreciate all the comments that are a bit negative, right? I'm not going to put them on the screen if they're too negative, but I do appreciate anybody coming in the comments and having a chat. And there you go. There's obviously someone from Northern Ireland. Thank you for the crack, Richard. She gets what I was trying to say there. I wasn't on about a cocaine-based drug, okay? Guys, see you all soon. And Momus, thanks for coming on. And if you just hang on, Momus, don't jump off. We'll hang on. We'll have a chat in the after the stream's ended. Okay, guys, see you all soon. Thank you. Bye bye.
Yeah.